The family advocates are awesome, and they're so helpful, and they genuinely want you to grow as a person and help us succeed. And they've done that for me and many other girls. My kids are happy. We have a place to sleep every night, and that means a lot to me.
It was like 10, 11, my first time that I lived on the streets. And in a lot of ways, St. Anne's became my family. They were the ones that were there through the rough times when I wanted to cry. So I felt so much better and relaxed and safe. Now that I'm here at St. Anne's, I do feel like I'm helping somebody and that I'm giving back.
I love St. Anne's.
Thank you for joining us.
I love St. Anne's because they've helped me accomplish stable housing, and it's really helped me with my
program. They help me and my kids, and they've been here and they show us much love and respect. They always have new programs in the rec room for kids and tenants.
I love St. Anne's because of the amazing staff members who work hard day in and day out. I love the fact that we give all of our program participants a second chance. We give them hope, and hopefully we inspire them to reach their full potential.
I love being the leader of St. Anne's. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We are so excited to be able to come before you and have a dynamic conversation. We usually have a yearly summit accompanied by a wonderful luncheon where we share some valuable information on a topic important to our community. And the conversation always has a connection to the work we do at St. Anne's. When we think about what we've all faced as a community in 2020, we have had to take a moment to pause and reflect on the major shifts and changes in our world, a time filled with uncertainty. Living with the various layers of concern due to the coronavirus pandemic. And as we've kind of lingered in this time of social isolation, losing loved ones, people dealing with increased depression, economic implications, it's really been difficult for so many people. The mix of political divisiveness, social and racial justice concerns, and the in-person closure for many educational and childcare facilities created a homeschooling strain which impacts all of those who have tried to maintain employment during this time. The quest for normalcy and emotional well-being is intense. The fatigue faced by our program participants, stakeholders, donors, and the community is so real. When we thought about the theme for our virtual conversation, hope and resilience was at the top of the list. That is directly tied to what we do at St. Anne's. Our mere existence provides hope for all our clients and our program participants and creates resilience. We're working every day to provide coping skills and resources. We wanted to share in kind of true, authentic 2020 style, a quick cell phone video clip taped by a participant who wanted to share what hope means to her. Mind you, it is not edited or produced, but it's the reality of sharing in her own voice.
Coming to St. Anne's 3 weeks. Before I came to St. Anne's, I had just Before I came to St. Anne's, I had just aged out of my housing program, and I had nowhere to go. I was 5 months pregnant and couch surfing for 4 months. Coming to St. Anne's 3 weeks postpartum was the best thing that ever happened to me. The day of my move-in date, I had many mixed emotions from happiness, excitement, and joy. as I would finally have somewhere to call home. Now that I've been living here at St. Anne's with my son, who's 10 months old, it's been the best as I get as I get a lot of help with tutoring.
Put my video. Hi, we're back. And, you know, as I looked at those smiles, I think about the fact that in this time, for her to be able to, you know, juggle her child, being able to, you know, do all she was doing while sharing, laughter alone is an act of resilience. The fact that she can find joy in the midst of being able to wrangle, you know how working with a young child can be. But what was amazing to me is the fact that she was able to share that she was couch surfing, that she was homeless, all these different things. And that, as I said earlier, our mere existence is a symbol of hope. And I'm thankful for that video and the rawness of it, because this is where we are. In 2020, things are different. People are literally making their way. Every day we're working with our team to make sure that we're providing the services as an essential organization. And that means that we need to share hope. And we hope that today's conversation provides the opportunity for people to feel the special gifts that we want to give to you, all those essential workers who are doing the best they can, all those people at St. Anne's, the dynamic staff who are here day to day. We're thankful to our board, we're thankful to our sponsors, we're thankful to our donors who have allowed us to be able to maintain providing services during this time. And we've provided resources, hope, skills, to not only those who are in the community that are a part of St. Anne's and living on our housing and in our campuses and getting the mental health services and the support, we've also provided that during this time to others in the community because the need has been so great. So when we talk about hope, there's hope mixed with resources, and we're thankful to everyone who's been a part of that. So I'm very excited today to have some dynamic panelists join us to be able to really share the messages of hope and resiliency. First, I'd like to introduce Maureen Stockton. She's the founder of Forme Shoe Shapers. She's providing hope and support in so many ways as a board member of St. Anne's. She has experience as an inventor and entrepreneur, and with her new creation, she's stretching shoes to help bring joy to the feet of men and women all over the country. She has a distinguished career of creating consumer brands and starting up businesses in a variety of categories. And we're so pleased that Maureen is a part of our organization as the vice chair of our board, because she was born at St. Anne's. So when you talk about looking at resiliency and hope, she is a prime example of that. Thank you for joining us today, Maureen. I'd also like to thank you for joining us. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce Dr. Allie Hicks. Dr. Hicks, Dr. Allie, as she's known in the community, you've probably seen her on television. She's been on a variety of programs. She speaks in many areas. She's a clinical psychologist. So the title doctor is not something that's fashionable. It's actually, she's a real doctor, a mental health relationship expert, television personality. But beyond that, she's a purpose finder. She uses her skills in terms of human behavior to transform people's lives, creating those strong connections. And what I really like about her is that she's worked in environments like ours, so she can kind of speak to the work that we do and understanding. But today she's going to speak authentically and talk about how our audience and the people listening some tips and can guide us around hope and resilience. Thank you for being here, Dr. Allie.
Thank you for having me.
Our last panelist is Wendy Gladney, and many of you know her in the community as well. Wendy is a success coach. She's community relations consultant, author, and transformational speaker. She's definitely a multifaceted businesswoman, a professional consultant. She's done a lot. And as we put the flyers up and put it out, a lot of people said, I know Wendy. She's very well known in the community, and she's built a reputation of delivering services with a plus. Her consultation firm, Personal Services Plus, helps clients organize their affairs and related to their goals around community relations, strategic engagement, and marketing and branding. Thank you so much, Wendy, for being here.
Thank you so much, Lorna. It's a pleasure to be with all the ladies today.
Yeah. So, hope and resilience. I have to say, some people say, you know, is there too much out there right now about hope and resilience? Do we need to talk about this? And for me, I have to say, I don't know if we can have too much. There's increased depression. There's increased economic impact. There's so much going on where people are feeling the tug in so many ways. As I mentioned before, you know, with school being out, although there's distance virtual learning, people are stressed trying to manage children at home and just all the different areas. And what I say started as a sprint. You know, when the pandemic started, it said, okay, well, a few weeks we'll hopefully be out of this, because no one knew what it was. This uncertainty has turned into a marathon. And so the fatigue associated with this time frame has worn on people in ways that we couldn't even begin to, you know, imagine. So I'd like to talk to you. You all have personal and professional stories and information that I believe can help those watching. So I'll start with Maureen, if you don't mind. Maureen is a talented and astute businesswoman. She's one of our board members. She has a personal connection to St. Anne's, as you were born here and adopted from out of the program. If you think about the early beginnings, you know, life started amidst challenges and hopefulness at the same time. And you've been extremely successful personally and professionally. This time frame has been tough for you, and I am actually amazed and admired amazed and admired by your ability for resilience around what you've had to deal with. You've lost some people that have been very close to you. And although it's not specific to COVID, it happened during a time when it was already challenging, already having pressures, and you lost your beloved husband, your birth mother, and your family pet that has been a family part of your family for years within a short period of time. How have you been able to manage, and what do you see hope as being during this time? Because it's your version of hope amid tremendous loss and universal uncertainty. And once again, we extend our sympathies to you, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorna. And I'm honored to be a part of this. And I want to thank everyone for watching today. St. Anne's is a special place, and I'm grateful on so many levels for St. Anne's. How I find hope, rosé, chilled, warm, whole bottle glass with girlfriends now.
Hey, we can laugh during this time. It's a good thing.
You know, sometimes, yeah, having a drink is definitely tempting, and I was supposed to turn off that phone. Sorry about that. Sometimes I find, I'm so
you know what? It's okay. This is 2020. Go ahead and turn it off, and we put a pin on it, because this is really where we are. It's okay. You can turn it off, because we're maneuvering, even in this moment, with the reality of the situation. Everything that, when we talk about uncertainty, that is what it is. And so we move on, and the resilience is keeping it going. So there you go.
Anyway, so, you know, I joke about the rosé. Yeah, there's a lot of people are taking comfort in alcohol consumption, and it's tempting. And sure, there are some evenings, but I find that it also dulls my ability to problem solve. And so really, I find that moving forward helps me, and I find hope through gratitude. And I never knew what a gratitude practice was. I've heard Oprah talk about it. I've heard others talk about it. But all I know is ever since I was a little girl, I just looked for the good in the day. And I do that every day. and I think in bed at night, what good happened? And it might have been just a simple phone call with somebody I hadn't spoken to in a while, a great taco that was just dripping and yummy good. Simple things, but I definitely find hope through gratitude. And I'm grateful that now I'm going to say for St. Anne's. So picture a day, a time period where a young woman is pregnant. My mother was pregnant with twins. She didn't have a wedding ring on her finger, and society shunned her. And she would go to the grocery store every week, and people would look at her big belly. They'd look at her ring finger, and with the absence of a wedding ring, they cast judgment and they spurned her. So she, for 6 months, was an outcast in society and felt tremendous shame. Yet she had strength to go through that and give birth, and found St. Anne's and gave birth to me. And with the faith that St. Anne's would place me in a good home, and I was. So I just find hope and gratitude.
Thank you. And that's a great point. We've been working even with our staff doing a gratitude challenge over these past few weeks, because hope does come from gratitude. It's hard at moments to get to that place, but once you start that practice. So thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna speak to and just ask questions of all of you. And so, you know, if you hear something, you want to jump in, but I'm gonna go over to Wendy. And you've been, you know, focused on, you know, speaking about forgiveness and what you've deemed a season of greatness, where you've worked with youth and adults, and women specifically, to work through potential barriers and help them live to their full potential.
Yes.
How has that shaped kind of in this time frame in terms of looking at hopefulness and resilience? Because that's a part of it when you talk about forgiveness and talking about working into your season of greatness. Because I know a lot of people had all these plans for 2020, and sometimes they feel conflicted about, you know, can this be my season of greatness? Speak to how you would share helping people in this moment around that area.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lorna. You know, also listening to Maureen, it just kind of took me back also to my childhood. And my childhood is part of why I do Season of Greatness and why I founded Forgiving for Living for at-risk girls. And, you know, as a child, I'm a biracial child. My mother's white, my father's African American. And similar to like what Maureen was sharing in terms of being shunned, my mother, who was pregnant with me before she married my father, my paternal grandmother actually made my father marry my mother. But here it was, I'm a child of the 60s. I was born in 1961, and it's during a time of the civil rights movement. So much was going on. My mother's family, although my grandfather was a Lutheran pastor actually, and talked about and taught brotherly love from the pulpit, when my mother brought home a Black baby and a Black husband, we were not welcome. So my mother actually left me when I was around 3 years old, and I never met my mother again until I was around 18. I lived with my paternal family, and then growing up with my father, when I was about 6 years old, I began to be sexually abused by my father, and I was sexually abused for 10 years. And so I had to come out of understanding how to survive, how to have hope, how to have resilience after dealing with both abandonment and sexual abuse. And I would have to say, but by the grace of God, did I survive. I come from an environment where in the African American community, especially in the 1960s, they did not talk a lot about, you know, psychology or getting help from someone like a Dr. Hicks. You know, we were basically taught, you know, just move through it, you'll be okay. You know, my grandmother, bless her heart, who was actually firstborn generation free in our family, passed away almost at the age of 100. And her solution, because she couldn't really deal with the fact that what her son was doing, she was kept saying, just go away to college, just get out of here, just go away. And I actually grew up in Riverside, so I didn't go too far. My alma mater is UCLA, and I believe it's also Maureen's. I think you also went to UCLA. So I was a Bruin. I was close enough to help a little brother, but had the hope that there was something else better out there. And as I was able to continue to matriculate through life and understand some things, and I did get professional help, because I do believe it's important to have someone like a Dr. Hicks that's in your life that can help you navigate and get through those things. So I'm so glad that these ladies are involved with St. Anne's to help your women and the people that come through there, because hope is about expectation. It's about a desire, and resilience is about the capacity to get through something through difficult times and to understand how to get through toughness. So for me, everything I do and everything in my life, I hope to leave that stamp to help people to understand that the power of forgiveness can help you with resilience as well as hope.
That's amazing. That's very powerful, because, you know, we talk about forgiveness, and forgiveness we talk about isn't always for that other person. It doesn't mean always a reconnection if there's someone that's,
Oh, no.
you know, but it's for you.
Yeah.
The forgiveness that allows you to heal and move forward.
Right. It's interesting. My grandmother taught me as a little girl, one thing she used to always say, because I grew up in the church, and she would say to me, you know, the Bible says to honor your mother and father, and it doesn't say to do that if they act right. It says to do that. And so when you honor, you know, your parents in such a way, there's going to be goodness. And so part of my honoring my parents is I was able to get to a place of forgiveness. I forgave them, but then brought them in and end up having conversation. And that's a whole nother story, too long to go into right now. But I know that that's part of what I'm sure the love at St. Anne's is all about, is about helping people to have that necessary conversation.
Exactly. And our team works with our young women, our families, our children, in our educational, you know, we have an ECE program, and we're really working to help provide that layer of what you were able to experience, because trauma is real. And speaking of trauma, you know, I say your conversation here today is actually kind of PPE, emotional PPE for people. And you know, where we're guarding ourselves physically with the masks and all the things which we need to do to be safe and also to keep others safe, but we also need to have that emotional support and really looking at, and I appreciate you sharing that you sought therapy, because there are times when people won't seek therapy because of whatever stigma. Speaking of therapists and speaking of trauma, Dr. Hicks, Dr. Allie, tell us a little bit about what trauma is. We hear that word so much. People are in this kind of perpetual state of, you know, traumatic experience between losing family members during COVID, during, you know, being fearful that they're going to touch something and may become ill. There's the turmoil around racial injustice, political turmoil as a community. All of this is trauma to a certain degree and is considered traumatic. Tell us a little bit about trauma and how we're dealing with things during this time, how we're to deal with things during this time.
Absolutely. Trauma is any adverse experience that causes a stress response in our body. So a stress response on a biological level, or releasing hormones like cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, right? So we release those things. Ancient, you know, our ancient ancestors released those things because a lion ran in the room. But now, very few of us deal with lions. Instead, we are dealing with COVID. We're dealing with loss. We're dealing with work and losing work. We're dealing with fears and insecurities about housing. And so those types of things can create this stress response in us. And that is a trauma. So there are different classifications of trauma. So there's trauma with a big T, which are things like physical injury, anything that may have caused the death of yourself, serious injury to yourself or others that were maybe around you, or even sometimes people that you maybe have heard. Some major damage could have happened to that person. These are things like the loss of another person in your life. Those are traumas with a big T: war, sexual assault. And then we have traumas with a little t. And when I say traumas with a little t, I don't want to be dismissive, because I think sometimes people may feel like, oh, you're saying my trauma ain't trauma. No, it's trauma. It's just, we created a classification. I didn't create it. Don't be mad at me. But so trauma with a little t, those are things like divorces, which are very traumatic, but like divorces, that's like losing a job. That's like being bullied at school. Those are the things that don't necessarily involve an actual physical injury, or the threat of death of someone, but things are still traumatic and can impact you on a very real biological and psychological level. And then we have traumas that can be short-term, which are, you know, things that our bodies are very accustomed to dealing with. These are, you know, you get hurt in an accident and you're slowly progressing towards recovery, or you lose somebody and you slowly progress towards recovery. But then we have chronic traumas, which is constantly being abused, living in a house full of abuse, or something like COVID is
Yeah, because I
chronic
was going to
trauma.
say that feels like a chronic situation at this point, 8 months into it. So
Yeah.
it's a chronic trauma.
And definitely so things like that. And so we have these many different levels of trauma, but no matter what, you still might be experiencing trauma, and some of the signs and symptoms that you are having an adverse reaction to trauma, because it is not accurate. So not everybody experiences like a PTSD or something like that after a trauma. They say around 70% of people that experience trauma actually might not have it evolve into a full-blown diagnostic criteria of PTSD. But a lot of people still, you're looking for symptoms like numbness. So this is like the experience of feeling really, really kind of detached and fuzzy when it comes to any thoughts about the trauma, to any emotions attached to the trauma. There's also hypervigilance. So this is maybe the response of being overly vigilant, and you hear a loud noise and you're jumping and you're much more hypervigilant than you would have been, much more reactive. Dreams and nightmares associated with the event that happened, as well as some anxiety and some physiological responses when you are reminded of something that is similar to the trauma.
So there are so many ways of looking at, trauma and how it impacts us. And, like you said, the lions aren't around, right now, but fight or flight in psychological terms is real. And, thank you for describing that. And I think people need to be aware if they're experiencing any of those symptoms. And there's a spectrum of how people respond. That lion could be in a room with us right now, and there would be some people that would be moving, and some people might have a thrill of like engaging. So there are different responses, and you need to be aware of your response. And I appreciate you speaking from that place, because we work with our young people who often come to us with a degree of trauma. Wendy, your share around sexual abuse, or some of our young people come to us with that, detachment from families of origin, being in the foster care system. So everything that you've said is all connected. Maureen, you're a business owner. Economic fear is a big piece right now because people have lost jobs. There are people who are entrepreneurs. Everyone's business is impacted. There are some areas that people are doing well. The folks who have created Zoom, and, the folks who are doing all the things to allow some of the virtual technology and things like that. But as a business owner, how have you pivoted during this time, and what does resilience in the business sector mean to you? Because some people who are watching are like, I'm okay, I can deal with COVID, I'll wear my mask, I'll be safe, but I'm worried about losing money and not having the income to support my family. So share with us, how you've pivoted and what resilience means to you in the business setting.
Wow, good question. I went into COVID and my business was flying. It was 3x over, meaning we were doing 3 times the revenue we had done last year.
Wow.
January, February, March hits, I'm on television, I'm getting interviewed, life seems amazing. And then like everybody, boom, just COVID, the shutdown, smacked the business cold. So the first thing I did, I think I did what a lot of people did. I said, let me conserve cash. So let me stop advertising. Let me see, this is only going to be a couple months. So let me be careful for these few months. And then it dragged on and dragged on. And we've had these ups and downs with openings and closings. And so it's really been frightening. So I continue to save cash. I had to lay off some people. That was really hard. And so I'm looking forward to next summer. All the economists I talk to say next summer we're going to have people immunized, we'll have travel and people out again. But we got to get through the next 6 months.
Yes.
And what does that mean for me? Well, I'm planning on ads. I'm planning on building the business. But with the loss of my husband, I lost that income. And I'm living a lifestyle I can't support. So on top of trying to help 4 kids manage the loss of their dad, me, the loss of my love and partner, I got to sell my house. Well, is this the best time to sell? Don't have a choice. So I got to set that up, sell it, downsize, and look at how I readjust. And so the only way I can do it is, here's my list. Boy, do I make lists.
Wow. Wow.
I'm a list lady.
Wow.
I love an organized
Oh my.
lady.
And if
List.
I tell myself if it's on the list, it will get taken care of.
Yes.
That's how I relieve the burden on
Yeah.
my shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I'm able to sleep.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you sharing the reality, because you know what? Your transparency and realness is someone out there is watching and saying they may not have the exact same situation, but they're experiencing some of the same feelings. And even if they have an opportunity to write those lists to help them kind of take it one day at a time. And even in your conversation, when we talk about hope and resilience, you're planning. You're looking towards the summer, you're looking towards ads, you're thinking about how to do this, because you have a great product that is going to, rebound when everything else rebounds, but you're thinking about day-to-day housing and all those things. Now, one thing I have to say, even in that moment, this time has been somewhat of an equalizer of stressors for people. Yes, I know it is different for those who have additional levels of income, but there is an equalizing place of the insecurity and certainty that a lot of our young women have felt about different pieces of, what's going to happen in my life? Where am I going to go? What am I going to live? Others are also feeling that in a different way. And so sharing today gives us perspective on in the middle of resilience. So thank you for sharing. And I'm going to go back to Wendy. You talked about your personal, family of origin, things, that occurred in terms of, being with the family, kind of being shunned due to the racial implications, your mom and dad. How, you talked a little bit about it, but how has faith really helped you in this process, and how for hopefulness and gratefulness? I know you talked a little bit about it, but I think so many people are relying on that in their own way. And I just like to hear you talk about maybe some of your faith practices during this time, and how does that help? Because a lot of people, when we talk about St. Anne's and we talk about separation of church and state and all of these things, everyone's welcome here, race, religion, all of that. What people don't often recognize when you talk about developing the whole person, spirituality is a component that is helpful in that evolution. So can you just talk a little bit about, in terms of in this realm, what that looks like for you?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you so much, Lorna. And I just want to say also to Maureen, my heart is with you, and I'm feeling you. So, just know that you have prayers. People who really know me well have always known that I'm a Christian and that I walk in Christian values, but I'm not one that, when you first meet me, I'm not the kind that are just say, are you saved? That kind of thing. It's not like that. But in tying in with your theme for the summit, one of the things I was thinking about is how faith is the substance of things hoped for, hope, and the evidence of things not seen. So, for me, I can understand some of the challenges, even as a business owner, that Maureen was talking about, because I've been in business for 27 years and have relied on myself in between marriages, because I've been, and I believe in transparency. I've been married 4 times. I got married as a child in college, was married for 16 years, and then had my 2 children during that time, was single for 7, got married again for a couple years, single again for almost 7 years, married again. and then the love of my life that I've known for 23 years came back into my life because of a death of a mutual friend. He lived in Chicago, and it was all about faith. And he was even telling me that he's always loved me. He's been divorced for about 19 years from his first wife, never remarried, because he actually said, I thought one day you would sit your butt down long enough and quit getting married and wait for me, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, Lord, you have a sense of humor. And it's all about faith, that eventually that we're never too old for love. We're never too old for hope. We're never too old for things to start all over again. And we got married during COVID. We got married in July in my backyard. He moved from Chicago, transitioned his entire life, and it was all built on faith in terms of understanding that God had a plan for our life. And I think that when all is said and done, that it's important for us to build, you know, legacies that last as it relates to what you can leave your children and community financially. But more than that, it's about what type of faith legacy are you leaving your family and your children so that they can have it now and even after we're gone, because life is going to end. But what we do and what we say is going to live on. And a lot of that is going to be based on your center and your core. So for me, faith has been that center. Faith has been that core. And I'm never afraid to share it at the proper time. Like I said, I don't jump at you and say, you know, but, you know, when people have really learned a lot about my life, because, you know, I have to divert. I don't even, oh, I do. I can't believe I have this here. So my very first little book that was really a booklet has a cover of a beautiful package. And I did that because I remember as a little girl, my grandmother used to always talk about gifts. And I had an aunt who would always go get a box from, like, I'll just say Neiman Marcus or something. But the gift inside came from Pick and Save, from Big Lots. You know what I mean? And so I talk about, oftentimes we look at packages, we look at the way we look. Everybody on here is so manicured and look really nice, but we don't know the brokenness that's sometimes on the inside. So if somebody has a box from somewhere, but they threw that box and it was cheap, it's gonna break. So it's about what's inside of us, and that's where faith really comes in. It's like, what's that core that keeps us no matter what's going on? And I too, like Maureen, my business has really suffered. Financially, I've had to make a lot of changes, but because of the love that I have with my Heavenly Father and my spirit, I know that this too will pass. And having sisterhood, having people that you circle yourself with, that we help one another. Right now, it's been amazing how many of us have all helped each other. And, you know, well, how much do I owe you? You're like, what? You don't even have any money. What do you mean? You know, it's like we're all helping each other.
Yes. Thank you. That's powerful. And you raised something very important. One of the things we try to do, and it's harder now in this virtual environment, is the sisterhood, the collaboration, the unity in our programs. In Beverly Terrace, we had a community room where we would want the residents to get together and have kind of that common bond and have that time together. Our girls in our housing program, our families, having alternative options, you know, our teams. And it is difficult now, but we are still hopeful, and we try to do that in a setting that is virtual. One of the questions that came up, and we are trying to watch the chat as we talk, and I'm going to ask, you know, a couple of questions, but I saw someone said, what are the steps recommended when you find out that a family member has been abused? And so, you know, I know that there are reporting requirements, and I don't know if they're asking more from a, you know, let's contact authorities, tell the authorities what's going on, which DCFS would normally get involved, or if the question is more, you know, how to have that dialogue amongst the family. How do you deal with the fallout of that? So I don't know if anyone wants to jump in terms of just briefly kind of answering the steps recommended if you find out that a family member has been abused. Wendy?
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I will say this real quick. Because of the work we even do at Forgiving for Living, the majority of the girls we work with are between 10 and 18, and they're in the inner city, and many of them have experienced some of this, which is part of why I've dedicated my life to helping with this. And that is one of the things we do first, because oftentimes what I've learned when I've worked with some of the young ladies is that they will come ask a question as if they're asking for a friend. Because they're afraid to say certain things. Also because, like you said, there are responsibilities and requirements once you know that, especially if it's a minor is being abused, there's a mandate. So oftentimes, you know, what I've tried to do, especially when a young lady comes and sits with me and chats and says, may I ask you a question, Miss Wendy, and blah, blah, blah. And I would try to lay out and show them, you know, what would that look like? And are you ready? You know, and what is actually happening? Because is it abuse in verbally that, or is it actually someone's being touched? I mean, it's a whole long story to get into it right now, but it depends on, but it's also to make sure that they know that there is a way to be safe, that they're loved, that they're valued, and that there's hope.
Thank you.
I totally
That's
agree.
great.
I think a lot of it is about what's happening in the moment, and are you mandated? So if you're mandated, you within 24 hours have to report it to the agency that you were you're reporting to, based on your state, based on your county, whatever. And there's a number of hotlines that you can access online. I mean, there's RAIN, NAMI has hotlines. I'm right here looking at the hotline for domestic violence. There's a lot of hotlines that you can reach out to, but I would say number one, assess the threat. Assess what is going on. Is this someone, do you need to call 911 immediately?
Yes.
And in a lot of cases you do, right? So I would say reach out to the appropriate authorities and then begin creating a plan for your family on how you're going to deal with this trauma, with this assault. I think even on this call and on this chat, we've had different stories about, how do we deal with these family issues? And one thing that I've seen in working with a lot of young women and young boys who have had these exact issues, sometimes the families turn on them.
Yes.
Instead of turning and wrapping their arms around them and saying, we support you, we love you, there's a lot of shame that family systems experience when there's been some type of assault or some type of abuse. And so instead of, if you have a desire to kind of push somebody away, really tap into yourself and understand, where is this truly coming from? And I now have to be here for this person in my family that I love that has been victimized. Believe the victims in your family.
Yes.
Wrap around the victims in your family. That's very
important.
Believe them.
So thank you for that, because one of the things at St. Anne's, many of the young women come to our programs because of this issue. Sometimes based on what has happened in the family, there's separation that occurs because they can't be safe in their home, and their home becomes St. Anne's. And many times they're pregnant, and sometimes it is by the perpetrator and sometimes it isn't. So it's important to do all the things that you said. So we appreciate the person that asked that question. So I want to, go back to Maureen. I want to ask you a question in terms of, you mentioned it to a certain degree, but when people are trying to look ahead, while dealing with all the implications and challenges faced by families, businesses, donors, everything, how you talk about gratitude, you talk about making your list, you talk about, doing these things. What are some other realities of trying to look ahead while you're conscious of what's behind you? How are you managing, and are there any thoughts or ideas that you can share in the moment to tell us? Because I know people are out there. I'm looking, there are things in the chat, but there are things that I'm being texted, and someone's texting and saying, I cannot believe that she's able to be there and sitting upright and sharing with all that she's gone through. So there's something that you have that's allowing you to be in that space. And if there's any tip that you can give or any thoughts.
Well, I used to be a planner. I think in high school voted most likely the biggest organizer. I organized walkouts to boycott budget cuts. I organized parties, you name it, and I would plan and I would organize. And it gave me, I believed, a sense of control until I got a phone call about my husband's accident. Yeah. And any sense of control blew up and was gone. And the ring I'm wearing survived his car accident.
I see it. Yeah, we see it.
And engraved, it says, "Hand in hand, we'll walk through life."
Hold on one second. All of a sudden, when you came in close, that's okay. When you came in close, I think it went out.
Oh, it worked for me. I saw it.
Yeah, you heard her? Yeah. No, I saw it. No. All of a sudden, the audio, I want to make sure you said, so the necklace, yeah.
The necklace is engraved and it says, "Hand in hand, we'll walk through life." That was the plan.
Beautiful.
And this survived the accident. Everything else burned up. And this, by miracle, was there. And right after the accident, all I could do, Lorna, I couldn't even think about the next hour. I had to be so present because the thought of the future was overwhelming. And what a gift that became, because I became so present. And it was a few months of shock and the only way I could survive was being present. And that was really good. And so what I've learned is I can't plan. Boy, did God laugh in my face. And so I'm just trying to adapt, and I'm trying to laugh. Oh boy, I try to laugh at myself. I try to laugh at, anything I can. I try to laugh at the fact that my husband and I got 2 puppies during COVID because we thought we'd have time. Now I'm a mother of 2 puppies. And I laugh, and I can't think too far in the future because I don't know what it is. None of us do.
None of us do.
Economists don't know. It's the first time we have a global where healthcare professionals can't project. All the people with the big PhDs, I'm sorry, doctor, the really smart people in the rooms, they can't project. They can't project. And so I'm just finding peace and comfort in acceptance and being present.
That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you. And being present is important. And, even as we're here today, I heard Wendy say that, and I saw it in Dr. Ali's eyes. We're here with you. We feel what you're saying. We extend our virtual hugs and love. And this conversation is a version of sharing that to the community, because there's a power in healing and hearing stories and hearing people's journey. It's not always the win, the success, it's the journey, the telling of, I've been through it, I'm taking my time, I'm going through it. And we're thankful for all that you continue to share and how you give to St. Anne's, because everyone here has supported St. Anne's in a variety of ways, and we appreciate that. There have been donations, there's been support, and Wendy, you just said something powerful about you're economically shifting at this moment as way others are, but you still supported with a donation to us. So that, when you said that meant a lot. So I want to continue, because as we're getting closer to our time, we're not done yet. If there are some other questions in the chat, I will be responding to them. So tips, Dr. Ali, I know you've given us some, but I really want to, all 3 of you, I know Maureen just shared, being present as being her tip. We're working with young women. We're working with families. We have a fatherhood program. We have an early childhood education program. You talk about our leadership team. I have to tell you, our leadership team is working to make sure that our organization is sustained, and making sure, you talk about hope and resilience. We had to pivot. We had to move our early childhood education centers, to distance virtual learning, trying to secure iPads, trying to do all the different things. Yet we're still dealing with these things personally ourselves. We're dealing with, some of us have young children, homeschooling, and we're smiling, and we want to bring hope to the program participants and the clients. So we're not always able to kind of show completely what we're feeling, because we want to bring hope. But we will also talk about transparency as well, because we want them to know that it's not an easy walk, that the journey is not easy. So share, Dr. Ali, anything for our staff who can have compassion fatigue, that's what I call it. People who are saying, you know what, I down to, my last few dollars, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. People who are being evicted, all the different things that people are dealing with. What are some tips to just help self-care and wellness, and what would you say? Well, and I'll also ask Wendy after as well.
Yeah, going back a moment, I think Maureen has brought up some really beautiful perspectives on how humans have this belief that we can predict what's going to happen in the future, right? And the way that we predict the future is by taking a culmination of experiences from the past.
Yes.
And that's really the only way that we can engage in these predictions. And so there is something so beautiful, and Maureen, I'm connecting with you so much on this, in being so radically present. And being radically mindful.
I like that.
Yeah, and in tying ourselves to this present moment. And I'll tell clients, I'll say, people will be really anxious and worried, and I'll say, but what's happening right now? What are your feet doing right now? What are your legs doing right now? Tell me how your chest feels. Where are you sitting? Like right now, my left foot is on top of my right foot. I'm not wearing any socks so I can feel the carpet under my feet. I'm having a conversation with you. I'm wearing a ring on the middle finger of my right hand. I mean, this is my right hand. And I forgot which hand was right and left right now. But sitting and being so fundamentally here reminds us that though we have not been safe in the past, and though we have no idea what really our future may hold, right now,
Breathing.
we're okay.
Yeah.
Right
In
now.
this moment. Right
And
now.
even if right now we're not okay,
We're
got this.
trying. Yeah.
You got this, right? I lost my dad in June.
Yes.
There's me and my two sisters and my mom. She has a big house that she now has to worry about and think about. It's a big shift and a major pivot. And I think a lot of the mindfulness, like I remember I called my mom and I was frantic. I was like, Mom, I have 50 million things to do on this list and I have to do this and I have to do that and I can't do this thing until this. And she was like, just do 3. Just do 3. And something so simple as just do 3 was able to pivot me back into the present moment. I love a list. I love writing things down. I've been doing this huge event with I started this organization called the Do Collective, and we're doing work right now on purpose. And so tying and connecting to purpose right now when things seem so much more dire. I was telling people, my dad, he passed away. He was a medical doctor, and people were coming out of retirement to come back to work in the middle of COVID, right? He worked at Watts Health Clinic in Compton Watts. He was one of their primary physicians there. And people were coming out of the woodworks to support and be all like boots on the ground because purpose outweighs fear.
Yes.
When you're afraid of something,
Yes.
purpose is what propels you through it. And your purpose is a mixture of the things you love, what you're good at, what you can hopefully make money at, and what will change the world. And so when you identify those 4 things and you start to unite them, that becomes your sense of purpose, your reason for living. And so I feel purpose, mindfulness, obviously people and social interactions, as well as embracing change instead of resisting it. In Buddhist thought, and they talk about allowing things to exist, almost like how you have a pen sitting on a table. The table isn't holding the pen, it's allowing the pen to be there. And so when it comes to change, instead of rejecting it, pushing it off the table, watch it, allow it, notice it.
And that is amazing. I know we have about 5 minutes left, and I so powerful what you shared. Because change is hard, and we're so used to the certainty of things. Although truly, when we really reflect, we really didn't have the full level of certainty that we thought we had. But it gave us comfort. There are some things, you walk into the office each day, and now we don't do that. You know what I mean? We drive to the store to get things and, we didn't have to wear a mask. Now we do that. But us taking advantage of the fact that there are some good sides to COVID. There's not a whole lot, but there are. The stillness, the back to the basics, the things that we thought we had to do that we don't have to do anymore, that we just knew we couldn't live without. Simple things, simple joys. The times when people invited us to things and we said, we'll get together later or we'll do it later. Now we respect those things. We have a couple of minutes and I just want to, I know I shared, Wendy, I wanted you to speak as well, but.
It's okay, whatever, just go with the flow.
Okay, thank you. I do want to say that our organization is an essential organization. We, like I said, this is usually a luncheon. We usually, charge, we have sponsors, all those things. We decided that we are going to live 2020 in the way that it has been lived. And we're going to go with the flow. We're going to move to a virtual format. We're going to do this conversation. We usually try to share additional information and, we have the professionals here today, but what was important for us is to really just be real, authentic, transparent. What you shared and what you do and what you've done is what we do for all those who we serve. We work with parents, we work with fathers, mothers, children, we provide mental health counseling and do all of these things while we're also experiencing these same feelings. So I appreciate And if anyone can support us in any way, that is not a high pressure ask. There are different things. People have sent books to the children. People have sent donations.
I'm going to build on you for a minute, and
Yes.
I'm going to tell everybody how wonderful you are. And just give me 30 seconds.
Okay. Okay.
I have the privilege of being involved with a number of great organizations and people. I have never met anyone like you, Lorna. You bring a sense of calm and structure and love and compassion and professionalism and brilliance and heart and soul and dynamism and leadership that is so rare, and we are blessed to have you. We are blessed to have staff that is also shares those qualities and support you. And so if anybody is thinking about giving to St. Anne's in any little bit, I will say every penny you have is worth it and well spent, and will be nurtured and taken care of and shepherded. For as hard as you work to make it, they will make it last and make it impactful.
Thank you.
Sorry
Thank
to
you
interrupt.
so much. No, I appreciate that because we are working very hard. You know, I feel for our team. They're on the, you talk about frontline workers. They're coming in every day. They're working in our early childhood education center. They're working with family. They're doing all the different things, and they're experiencing those same risks. And I get a little emotional because you said those nice things about me and I feel uncomfortable, but I'm emotional for our staff and our team. We're trying to provide the hope and resilience, and we're doing it. That young lady in the beginning, you know, trying to wrangle the baby and laughing, and people may say they don't get that. It's the joy of being safe. It's the joy of knowing that I have people to back me up. It's the joy of knowing that regardless of what happens with work, the housing or what have, it's all there. So I thank you all today for sharing, for being transparent, for the work that you do, making sure that people out there know that there are people professionally in so many ways. We've lost, but we have more to gain. And if we take the time to work through, and Wendy, as you continue to work in the community and provide support and coach and guidance, because we are going into a season of greatness. And Dr. Ali, you're gonna continue to help people to see that therapy is not something that people should be ashamed of. They should embrace it and get the help that they need. Maureen, your business is going to turn around and boost, and your emotional healing is going to be a journey that we're going to be proud at some point. You're going to be able to say, I can't believe I went from here to there. And your dear Brian is always still with you. I have to share that I told her I saw a video that he did, and it was so powerful to me after his passing. He is still giving. Now you talk about purpose. That's purpose. And so thank you. I'm seeing all the notes coming in. I appreciate all the panelists. Thank you so much. St. Anne's means the world to me and all of you, and blessings to everyone. If anyone has like one final thing to say, please let me know. It's so funny. Someone said, thank you for putting this conversation together. This has given hope to so many. Now that's the last thing in the chat. That is what my hope was today. That was my hope. We're gonna make it. We're in this together. Look at even the computer wants to jump in with a thing to say, but thank you. Hope and resilience, we all have it in us. We all have it to give to others. And in giving that gift, we will all really share the journey together. And one day we're gonna meet up in a physical group, no mask necessary, no PPE, nothing. We're gonna be okay. But until then, be safe, safer at home, mask up, and stay well. Thank you all. Wendy, Dr. Ali, Maureen, and the whole development team and St. Anne's staff, board, sponsors, donors. Thank you. Be blessed.
Thank you, Lorna.
Thank you.